Hey y'all, hope you're doing good today. So in today's message, I want to share a little excerpt from this book from Ken Keffer called Knowing the Trees, Discover the Forest from Seed to Snag. And it has really beautiful illustrations by Emily Walker. So I just encourage you, if you have interest in not only forests, but just nature in general, it's a really cool book. And so you won't regret it. But I want to share a section here, a little excerpt from page 174. And the way I pulled this inspiration is I put the request out, right, to the higher power, and which is what I do a lot of times, and I'll flip through and I'll just land somewhere that feels right to me. So it's like just a practice you can do when you're trying to get back in alignment with your intuition, and just kind of pause and take some time to evaluate what you are feeling called to. And typically when I do that, it's something that really resonates with whatever's going on in my life or whatever message I'm already starting to create and formulate, whatever's coming together. It's just another piece of that puzzle. So I hope that you enjoy this. It was very relatable as far as the experience I've had in my life with transitions, life transitions. So this section is called Ghost Forests. Okay. Habitats are a dynamic spectrum, and the successional process is in a near constant state of flux. And then it says, see succession earlier in this section. The climax community should not be considered the pinnacle or the most successful habitat. This is important because there are times in our life that seem to take center stage with regards to our attention, the impression that a certain experience or season in our life makes on our mind and heart. You know, however much we're impacted, whether it's positive or negative, it seems to just make such an imprint in our very being that it could be described as a pinnacle, right, or the most successful as far as making an impression on us and shaping who we are. When I use the word successful here, or I read this, that's what I'm talking about. You know, and sometimes, unfortunately, negative experiences can be the most successful. They can win out in a person's life because we all experience, you know, a myriad of positive and negative things, right? Good and bad, or good and evil. And I think that, let me just say this too, I think that we might be hardwired to focus more on the negative experiences just as a matter of survival. And so I think that we have to consciously work at maintaining a position of faith to not just, you know, delude ourselves into thinking that all this bad stuff we went through was really not that bad, but instead to acknowledge it, but to consciously shift it out of focus so that it doesn't sit in the driver's seat of our life, if that makes sense. And that's what I pull from this first part here, right? So when it's talking about ghost forests, and we're going to get into it, it's talking about how the landscape can change just naturally. And it gives some examples of what can happen with the coastal forest areas and how it can look totally different and contain totally different species of plants and animals and everything after an event has happened. And so our life is very much experienced in that same manner as we go through different seasons and different experiences, right? So this is meant to be encouraging, and I just hope that it does encourage you and maybe just kind of get the wheels turning like I always say. So again, habitats are a dynamic spectrum. They're always changing, right? They even said it's in a near constant state of flux. The climax community should not be considered the pinnacle or the most successful habitat. Ecologically, functionality depends on a mosaic of successional states. Yes. One region where habitat is noticeably transitioning is along coastal salt marshes. Stands of trees eke out an existence along the brackish interface between fresh and salt water. While these trees are tolerant of relatively high levels of salinity, they cannot survive in salt water. A 1-2 punch of droughts followed by hurricanes can speed up the demise of the coastal forest in some instances. The parched landscape may take on a surge of salt water, which ultimately kills off entire forests. The standing snags can remain prominent, ghostly gray sentinels for years, as the vegetation and waterscape change around them. Notice that this is a slow, here goes the wind again, y'all. There was like no wind before I started filming. So, taking a look at my little room divider that's meant to be indoors that I've got out here, holding up my lights. Okay. Notice that it's talking about these standing snags, right? That can remain for years as the vegetation and waterscape change around them. So, see, when we've been through a really impactful season in our life, specifically if it has affected our mind and our body, any part of us to such a degree that we are changed, we are no longer able to function in the same way, and maybe our brain has been literally impacted. I believe, and you're welcome to check me on this and do some research on it if you'd like, but from what I recall, I remember reading that PTSD can have a similar, if not the same, impact on one's brain as an actual physical, literal, traumatic brain injury, like a physical impact. So, I just want to encourage you to give yourself a little grace if you are struggling, with getting the wheels turning, right? I think that we need to find a good, healthy balance of trying to turn the wheels again and resting. Hence, my hammock back here. So, my cocoon, I call it. And this requires being in alignment with yourself to such a degree that you can discern how much is enough with social engagement, with researching and learning, with trying to break out of old paradigms and conditionings and mental prisons and expand your mind with new concepts and resting and just kind of letting go of things. There's a healthy balance there, and there are not only larger seasons of many different things in our life, but as far as healing, these seasons might even be perceived as a micro level type thing that we engage in within our daily lives, more like a cycle, to find that balance just within your daily life, right? And I have no notes today. I'm going off just my inner guiding light, right? So, again, just give yourself grace, because it really is true, that old saying, that things they take time. And the good part of that is, the saying really says that it's good things that take time. Think about it. Think about the difference in being patient with oneself and with circumstances and limitations and healing and all this, versus a person who's impulsive and the outcomes from acting impulsively. There's a big difference there in the outcomes. So just be encouraged that time is just like that old song. Gosh, is it the Beatles? I can't remember. Time is on your side. Time is on my side. Yes, it is. It's about finding a place of peace amidst the storm, which is, I feel like, a huge theme in many different religions. So just finding that perfect, spot that works for you, and finding that balance, right? It is dynamic. So it says the shift in conditions can be ideal for the non-native phragmites. I hope I'm saying that right. Phragmites, or reed grasses, much easier to say, right? To move in and form a monoculture of dense reedy habitat. In other instances, the opening of the canopy allows salt-tolerant shrubs and salt marsh grasses to thrive. These healthy marsh ecosystems support a different array of species than the forests they replaced. For species such as various woodpeckers and the prothonotary warbler, these ghost forest snags become new homes. Woodpeckers carve out nesting cavities in the snags, but prothonotaries also benefit, as they are one of only 2 species of warblers that nest in hollow tree cavities. Marsh specialists also thrive in this new interface between land and sea. Secretive by nature, seaside sparrows, clapper rails, and least bitterns slink about in the salt marshes left behind, while coastal forests once supported many bird species. Losing this sliver of habitat creates more opportunities for another community of plants and animals in its wake. And that's just it. So we know again that just like Romans 8:28, God works all things for the good of those who love him. I would not personally say that God makes the bad things happen, because the Bible explains that there's nothing bad in God. He's all good. And yet, of course, if you wanted to get into a debate, it's really interesting, to consider, if everything started with God, and God always has been and always will be, then that would mean that everything came from God and therefore is a part of God, including, bad. But this is where you have free will coming into play. So it's just fun to think about if you're in the right space to do it. You know what I mean? But in general, I would not, this is not part of my belief system anyway, that God is a proponent of bad things whatsoever. I just think that that's a result of the grand design, including free will. And so he comes in and works with the results of the free will at play in everyone's life. And I'm not even talking about your own. It includes that too, but the free will of others that impacts you, in a bad way. So he works with that. And so I love that closing paragraph talking about the new life that forms in the wake of this destruction, and yeah. And so I just hope that's encouraging to you. And let me just, before I move on and share this other little quote from this book, which has been fun. It's actually from 2023, but it has literally a page a day of just interesting quotes around Zen, right? The topic of Zen. But before I get into that, I wonder if you've experienced this. If you've been lied to, like to such a degree that your mind has been affected, you've been gaslit and remained in such a place of self-doubt for so many years that you're having to work at rewiring your brain. I have days where I feel almost like my old self again, and I think that as you heal, you're going to have more and more and more of those days. And then I have days where it's just kind of slow. And there's obviously other things at play here. Just like for all of us, just sleep plays a big factor. Your nutrition, any kind of stress or whatever's going on in your life, of course, right? But those of us who have been through, I don't really know a better term to use other than psychological abuse, whether it was intentional or not from this person who has issues. Those of us who have been through that, whose minds have been affected, we have this additional layer. that we have to work with. And so there will be days where it's just not clicking quite as quickly as you would want, and it's very frustrating. And I just encourage you to just let it be. You may have to fight against it depending on whatever is going on in your day, your job or whatever. But take more time to rest, to take naps. All the things that are very restorative are going to help you very, very much. They've been possibly more helpful than anything for me. The most basic needs, physiological needs, super important. I just wanted to remind you of that, instead of pushing yourself with energy drinks and caffeine and all this stuff, which y'all, that's going to be dangerous. So I'm not going to preach at you, but because I certainly have, 2-3 different espresso drinks a day, and I try to slack off, some days and just give my body a break. But just consider allowing your tiredness to remain and not fight it every now and then, and just indulge in a good rest. So, okay. So, yeah, before I move on, there's one more thought I have, since I'm not going off, a note, scripted notes or anything. I think that it's possible, whether present day or when you were in the thick of being lied to day in and day out, I think that, dissociation, which comes about as an automatic process within one's psyche and really is part of a survival mechanism that's part of our design, right? But dissociation can be something that winds up conditioning the way your mind operates. And so let me give you an example. When you come out of a toxic situation, right, you may find that you've had plenty of sleep. You've been eating right. You've had plenty of water, which, oh my gosh, I know people preach about water, and I'm not one of these people that tries to drink like a huge thing of water every day. I just don't do it. But I can tell a huge difference if I drink enough water versus if I don't, with my brain clicking and everything, my energy levels, all of it. Water plays a huge, huge part. And also, if you want to, just a quick tangent here, if you want to just a boost of just feeling alive, literally, and you've never tried it, you might look into juicing greens, because it's almost like an electrical type, boost, jolt. I don't know what you would call it. I have experienced that many, many times. I, in the more recent years, have found some kind of negative research study. I didn't save it. You could probably find it if you wanted to dig for it and go down that rabbit hole, right? But I found something negative about juicing greens, that really you're taking it out of moderation. That old saying, everything in moderation. You're taking it out of that, and you're not consuming the greens as they are intended to be consumed by chewing, but you're just forcing this huge amount to your juicer and getting the juice from them. But my experience has been, so there's some caution there is what I'm saying. Please do your own research. My experience has been, whenever I take a shot of greens, which they taste like earth, they taste like dirt to me, which is weird. It's literally like I just get this electrical charge, and it's incredible. And so that's something you can look into. I don't do it so much anymore these days, but maybe I should. But back to dissociation. So if for many, many years your mind has been worked, okay, by someone or a group or whatever it is, and you were faced day in and day out with this duality, someone or a group or whatever that presents this image of caring and just doing the right thing and having your best interests at heart and all this stuff, right? But yet they're undermining, they're sabotaging, they're degrading, they're lying to you, and you're picking up on that too. But yet it's like you're trying to reconcile. Your mind is in constant overdrive trying to make sense of a paradox day in and day out. And that's a lot. That's a lot on your mind. And so it's human nature to want to make sense of things, right? But what happens is, I think this striving to make sense of things for so long, over a period of many years, creates or culminates in near constant stress levels that you unconsciously normalize, and you don't recognize that you're stressed out. And because of that, you don't intervene. And your body, though, some part of you knows how stressed out you are over this daily burden. And the result, and again, I think this is automatic and unconscious, the result is dissociation to some degree. I think that it can happen in varying degrees, right? And when I say dissociation, that's a whole nother topic, and I'm no expert. Just disclaimer again, once again. But I think that can manifest in a lot of different ways. Okay, so that being said, I think that when you come out of the situation, you can still sort of find yourself dissociating, not even consciously, but just as a part of the conditioning imprint that has been made on your mind. And so if you find that, it's kind of like, what are the signs? What are the signs you're dissociating? I would say you know there's a difference in time. Something's going on with time. You feel like you just sat down and read a book for 5 minutes, but maybe it was 2 hours, in reality. And you're like, what happened with the time? That may be, an instance. Or having, lunch or coffee with a friend, and having this really in-depth conversation, and then a couple hours later you can't really remember what you talked about, so things don't stick. If you're dissociated, even slightly, you may be able to be present with your friend, but if there's some mild dissociation going on, you may not remember or retain anything from that conversation. So it can just manifest in so many different ways, and I think it can be on the very far extreme part of the spectrum too, which is really sad. But I think that when people talk about grounding, I think that is not only a practice for finding peace and coming into the present moment, but also a good, what do I want to say? I almost said ailment, but that's the opposite of what I mean. Medicinal. It's a good medicinal practice, right? Nature is so medicinal, not only directly by plant medicine, right? But also just being in nature itself. I was talking about forest bathing. I mentioned that several times. This book talks about that. It's got a section on forest bathing. But grounding, the practice of grounding itself, can be very medicinal, because to me, this is just my perspective, but it's a way to tell yourself that you are safe and that you are not any longer in a stressful, bizarre, crazy-making, chaotic environment. So, and the other part of grounding is supposedly electrical, which is really cool. Just to think that there are things such as, what are they called, ley lines, and And there's even magnetism. It's just, I don't know, people who are like, no, magic is fairy tale or fantasy. I'm just like, what are you talking about? This whole existence is magic. It's magic. And to me, and gosh, you could debate that too and say, well, magic is only for people who don't understand, the academics around a topic or whatever. It's, you can debate, I'm going to tell you, you can debate anything, every which direction from now till eternity. It's just, if you wanted to. But to me, this is just a part of my healing practice, these perspectives, and I just like sharing them with you all. So on that note, I will move forward and share this little quote from this book, A Year of Zen. Okay, and this is for today, Tuesday, September 19th. And I'm not sure how to pronounce this name, but the quote is from Nikos Kazantakis. Yes, I'll drop it in the description for you all. But it says, the highest point a man can attain is not knowledge, or virtue, or goodness, or victory, but something even greater, more heroic, and more despairing. Sacred awe. And I thought, absolutely. These are just very simplistic little pages, but they give you just a little nugget to think on, every day, just something you might look into if you have interest. Sacred awe. That is a beautiful and peaceful place to be. It's kind of like shifting from finding security or comfort in truly believing that you know how things are and that you have a certain level of a part to play in it and therefore control or whatever. There's a certain season in one's life when that kind of stuff you think brings you comfort until one day it doesn't. Until one day, all of that is shattered. And, or spiritually speaking, you may say, the veil is lifted, right? The veil is lifted. Or, the dome is cracked. Or the prison is broken up in your mind. Your mind is blown. So many different ways you can say it. But the point is, at that point, what do you do? And so, ultimately, I think that this places us at a crossroads where we can make a decision to either look back and try the worldly way again of finding comfort in knowledge, right? And consciously this time fooling ourselves into thinking that we are really in control. But see, if you are, this is kind of like a place of a reckoning, I think you might say, where in the past you didn't know any better, but now you do. So for many of us, going backwards is not an option. It's just not. And so, peace and comfort now, and stability, right? Which is really kind of like on that whole Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's kind of like one of the first or second base foundational things that matters is belonging and stability, right? And feeling like you are rooted and grounded in a position of security, okay? And this is not just physical, but emotional, intellectual, spiritual, all of it, right? So when this is just shattered all to pieces, okay? So now you have this option, okay? Trying to pretend again so that you can fit in and be in the world and of it still. But again, for many of us, we're still in the world, but we just cannot be of it anymore. It's not possible. And so from this position, we are placed into living actual Bible verses out. I hope I'm right in saying this. I think it's 1 Corinthians 3:18. I'll double check and drop the description, but it's talking about, in order to be wise, if one truly wants to be wise, you have to become a fool, right? To become wise again. And that's the position that we are willing to accept. And by doing so, by becoming, a fool again, you're not really a fool. You're just becoming innocent again in that manner, because you are now childlike once more. You are in a place of humility. You are in a place of acknowledging you don't know it all. And that is a place of magic. It is a place of sacred awe. And if you can embrace that, it will bring you peace. It will bring you peace. And part of that is understanding that, this feels right and good at this stage in my life, and yet what comes along with that is acknowledging that you're not in control. I mean, your day-to-day life and paying bills and all that kind of stuff, yeah, okay. But, the bigger picture, that's what I'm talking about, right? Bird's eye view. You're not in control. And so it is a place of surrender. But yet, this is where truth is a paradox through my perspective. And that is, and it does require faith, right? And for me, an acknowledgement that there is another power and control that is loving and does intend good things for us, right? But it's a place of surrender to that. And so by doing so, you still get that base level need on that hierarchy, right? Which is belonging and security and being rooted and grounded, right? Even though you're technically rooted and grounded in surrender. So it's a beautiful paradox. It really is. But I hope that this has got the wheels turning for you in a good way. If it's kind of like feeling like it's out of control or screeching or something, bothering you, then please make sure that you carve out some time to rest your mind and your body, your soul, your spirit, all of it, and just take care of yourself. And when you're feeling like it once again, I just encourage you to pick up some thought-provoking books such as this, and maybe this. And if I can find the links to these online, I will drop them in the description for you all. So I hope you enjoyed the message. I hope that you have a beautiful day. I've got more videos coming out pretty soon this week. I've got some time, and I'm excited to share them with you all. So have a beautiful day, and I'll see you again. Oh, I got a new microphone, y'all. Isn't it pretty? Matches my Jeep. I forgot to share it. Okay. So I think that's it. So have a beautiful day, and I'll see you again very soon.